How do you spend almost $500 million on a game, have the largest, most experienced teams in gaming and still somehow screw up everything that actually matters? I'm talking about the latest dumpster fire, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Ubisoft finally decided it was time to listen to fans, to give us what we've been asking for since the early 2000s, an Assassin's Creed game, set in Japan. And for once, fans were hyped, pre-orders through the roof, matching Odyssey's at first, a solid start considering Ubisoft's track record. Then Ubisoft did what they do best. They took an amazing concept and immediately ran it face first into controversy. In May 2024, Ubisoft revealed Assassin's Creed Shadows, with two protagonists, Naoe, a fictional shinobi, and Yasuke, a real historical figure from Africa who lived in Japan during the Sengoku period. Sounds cool, right? Yeah, except Ubisoft decided it was historically accurate to portray him as a full-fledged samurai, fighting alongside Nobunaga, a powerful warlord trying to unify Japan. Here's where the problem kicks in. There's almost no credible historical record supporting Yasuke ever being an actual samurai. After Nobunaga's death, he didn't even qualify as a ronin, a masterless samurai, which shows clearly how little recognition he truly had in the samurai hierarchy. So Ubisoft pushing the narrative that Yasuke was a samurai isn't just debatable, it's borderline ridiculous and feels like pandering for easy diversity points rather than respecting genuine history. Within days, the trailer had a 70% dislike ratio. To this date, over 600,000 people slamming Ubisoft with the gaming equivalent of a middle finger. In fact, Japanese players felt so disrespected that they started a petition to discontinue AC Shadow's release. Over 105,000 Japanese people signed it. They say, the game is based on Japanese samurai and ignores the fact that samurai were a higher warrior class and should have been gokunin or servants of nobles. In fact, the first European to receive the title of samurai, William Adams, Miura Anjin, served Tokugawa Ieyasu as a 250 koku hatamoto. In this history, Ubisoft continues to misunderstand the nature and role of samurai. This is a serious insult to Japanese culture and history and may also be linked to Asian racism. We call on Ubisoft to immediately cancel the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows and show sincere research and respect for Japanese history and culture. And look, there's nothing wrong with making an unhistorical game. Games like Nioh did this perfectly fine. Everyone knew it was fantasy, so nobody complained. But Ubisoft? They went out of their way to market Shadows as authentic and respectful to Japanese history and culture. Their lead producer, Carl Oni, even said, "We are trying to create a game that is as authentic as possible. It's something we take pride in." And that's the problem. If you're going to push words like authentic and respectful in your marketing, you're telling players you care about getting things right. So when people find blatant inaccuracies, whether it's Yasuke being a samurai, misrepresented cultural elements, or just lazy mistakes, you can't be surprised when they call you out for it. You set the expectation, and then you failed to meet it. If you thought that was bad, things got even worse. Ubisoft's genius marketing team thought that a perfect way to showcase an African protagonist in feudal Japan was by slapping a hip-hop track over his fight scenes. Because clearly African equals hip-hop, right, Ubisoft?
I said, kill him.
People noticed immediately. Reddit threads blew up and YouTube reactions like Asmongold absolutely shredded Ubisoft for this absurd cultural stereotyping.
Greed cannot rule this village. Not while I have breath in my lungs and a blade in my head. I said, kill him.
Brought to you by... You get in a car with them, they turn on the hip-hop channel, and then they look at you. This one's for you.
By July, Ubisoft was already forced into apology mode after accidentally stealing art assets from an anime. At Ubisoft's Japan Expo booth, fans immediately noticed that Yasuke's supposed in-game katana looked suspiciously identical to Zoro's sword from One Piece, and sure enough, after a quick search, you can literally find the exact same prop sword on Amazon for $30. Not only that, but they also accidentally featured a flag belonging to the Sekigahara Teppotai, a real Japanese historical reenactment group that explicitly states their symbols aren't for commercial use. And of course, Ubisoft never asked for permission. This triggered a storm of criticism. Not just from gamers, but from historians and Japanese commentators, furious at yet another careless mistake. Imagine being so incompetent, with a budget of over $300 million, that you're caught plagiarizing props from Amazon. Seriously, who approved that? Now, Ubisoft being Ubisoft, they released a whole statement promising authenticity, respect. You know the drill. They also placed torii gates at the entrances of random villages, something that literally never happens. Torii gates are sacred symbols found exclusively at Shinto shrines, not random farming villages.
So there is a gate here. Usually these things lead to shrines. And as you can see, this thing is leading to a farming kind of residential business city from the looks of it. So maybe he's coming back from a shrine. Who knows? But so far it's kind of giving some uneasiness, right? A little bit weird.
These weren't minor nitpicks. These were cultural misrepresentations that showed Ubisoft couldn't even bother to fact-check basic details. Again, all this after explicitly promising authenticity. Remember, this game's budget was pushing $350 million, yet they somehow didn't have the funds to hire an actual historian from Japan until well into development. But it didn't end there. October rolled around and Ubisoft somehow thought turning a real-life symbol of Japan's nuclear disaster from World War II into a fun collectible statue base was a good idea. Ugh. I can't believe I am even reading this. And naturally, Japan lost it. Twitter and YouTube exploded. Pure Arts had to literally scrap and redesign their merch overnight. It's like Ubisoft was doing a speedrun of how quickly they could offend an entire nation. Now, let's talk delays. This game has had multiple already, first to February, then again to March. And look, I'm all for delays if they actually improve the final product. But when you delay a game multiple times, and the gameplay still looks like an alpha build, you've clearly got deeper issues. How many millions did these delays add to the budget? Estimates put it between 30 to 40 million extra. Money spent fixing mistakes Ubisoft could have avoided had they actually planned properly from the start. Then we got to the early preview streams Ubisoft handed out to influencers. Total chaos. We saw AI guards repeatedly walking into walls, completely oblivious to the player sneaking past them. It's baffling that Ubisoft delayed the game twice specifically for polishing. Yet here we are watching a supposed quadruple-A masterpiece publicly crumble before release. And then came the leaks. In late February 2025, physical copies of Assassin's Creed Shadows started surfacing almost 4 weeks ahead of launch, reportedly due to distribution errors. Unfinished versions flooded Twitch and YouTube, with Ubisoft scrambling to pull down streams as quickly as they appeared. But it was already too late. Within hours, thousands saw Yasuke clipping through walls, NPCs glitching through buildings, and major story spoilers spreading rapidly. Ubisoft frantically tweeted, "We are aware players have accessed Assassin's Creed Shadows ahead of its official release. Please note, the leaked version is not representative of final quality. We encourage fans not to spoil the experience for others." But guess what? Nobody bought that excuse. Why would the footage shared online not represent the final quality of the game? It's been leaked because people found early copies. The damage was already done. Gamers saw firsthand that Shadows was nowhere near ready, even after multiple delays and promises of final polish. So here's my question for Ubisoft. How do you manage to spend nearly $500 million, having multiple delays, countless apologies, and still end up with a product that might sink your entire company? And more importantly, how did Assassin's Creed, a franchise literally built on carefully crafted historical immersion, become the ultimate example of lazy, disrespectful storytelling? To really understand how deep this rabbit hole goes, we need to talk about Ubisoft's internal culture. the toxic environment that keeps setting them up for failure. Because Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't just another poorly managed AAA title, it's a glaring symptom of a deeper industry-wide disease. If we don't address this soon, Shadows is just the tip of the iceberg. Ubisoft's issues didn't start here. They've been brewing for years, festering beneath layers of incompetent leadership and corporate mismanagement. Shadows simply exposed how fundamentally broken AAA game development has become. At Ubisoft, the problem begins with leadership. Executives who dismiss legitimate criticism as nothing more than toxic gamer talk. In fact, according to current and former Ubisoft developers, management actively discourages engaging with genuine player concerns. Instead, they're told internally to ignore backlash, labeling it as meaningless negativity, even when valid critiques flood platforms like YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter. This toxic positivity means that crucial feedback is ignored. Employees have described Ubisoft's internal atmosphere as stifling and overly cautious, where adding smiley faces or exclamation marks in messages could lead to HR investigations for harassment. Imagine that. A multi-billion-dollar company terrified of emojis, yet utterly unconcerned with releasing culturally insensitive, historically ignorant games. Developers from Ubisoft confirm that management rarely discusses external criticism openly. Instead, they prioritize casual player sales and dismiss serious fan concerns as a vocal minority. This ignorance is exactly why Shadows became such a disaster. Developers weren't allowed to openly challenge poor design decisions, inaccuracies, or culturally insensitive representations. Even worse, Ubisoft tried manipulating public discourse by collaborating with media outlets like the New York Times, framing legitimate criticisms, especially from Japanese audiences, as mere racist or toxic backlash. Instead of listening, Ubisoft doubled down, leveraging media connections to avoid accountability rather than address real issues. This culture of fear, censorship, and forced uniformity has consequences. Experienced developers get sidelined, pushed out, or replaced by less skilled, cheaper talent. This endless turnover creates a leadership vacuum filled by inexperienced junior employees who lack passion, skill, or even basic understanding of the genres they are working on. It's no wonder Shadows is riddled with issues like inaccurate historical details, disrespectful portrayals of Japanese culture, and absurd technical failures. It's what happens when employees can't speak up, when creativity is crushed, and when legitimate criticism is demonized. Ubisoft's leadership clearly thinks they're on some righteous path, but that path is a dead end. They've lost touch with their core audience, choosing to chase trends and virtue signal rather than create meaningful content. They're so fixated on hitting financial goals through casual gamers, they ignore the increasingly loud voices of dedicated fans demanding better. Ubisoft doesn't just have a Shadows problem, they have a deeply rooted systemic problem. And unless Ubisoft seriously rethinks their approach, Assassin's Creed Shadows won't be their last disaster, just their latest. Why does Ubisoft keep sabotaging itself this way? Because it's easier and cheaper to virtue signal with diversity or pretend historical authenticity matters, rather than putting in the real work. They hire consultants too late, disregard historians' advice, and treat cultures like decorations rather than core elements of gameplay. The result? Generic worlds where immersion goes to die. And let's not ignore how Assassin's Creed somehow became the battleground for identity politics again. When fans pointed out inaccuracies with Yasuke's portrayal instead of genuinely addressing the issues, Ubisoft pivoted, blaming toxic gamers. Now, to be fair, there definitely was some toxicity in the fanbase, but Ubisoft conveniently ignored legitimate criticism from actual Japanese players, people who were tired of seeing their history reduced to a stereotype for easy woke points. There's nothing more hypocritical than claiming you respect authenticity while repeatedly disrespecting it, than labeling critics as racist or toxic for pointing it out. I mean, Japanese gamers openly mocked Ubisoft's portrayal of destroyed shrine gates and farming seasons. They noticed immediately, while Ubisoft's own consultants apparently slept through it. But you know what really pisses me off? Ubisoft has the talent, budget, and resources most studios would kill for, yet all of that just went to waste. Millions upon millions wasted. We could have had another Baldur's Gate 3. As a passionate gamer who also enjoyed the Assassin's Creed series, this is just painful. Why do big AAA studios keep making these mistakes? Because somewhere along the line it became acceptable to launch broken games, hoping patches can save their reputation after the fact. This isn't exclusive to Ubisoft, they've become the prime example of how not to run a game studio. Here's what really worries me. If Ubisoft, one of gaming's biggest giants, can fall so spectacularly, what does this say about the industry's future? Gaming shouldn't be about betting $500 million on empty hype and promises you can't keep. It should be about quality, authenticity, and respecting the players who keep these studios alive. But if there's one silver lining in this disaster, it's how loudly the gaming community pushed back. Players and critics alike stood up, pointed out the hypocrisy, and refused to be gaslit into silence. And believe it or not, that's exactly what gaming needs more of. Fans who demand better, who refuse to accept mediocrity as the new normal. Because we've seen games that respect history and immersion thrive. Titles like Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Elden Ring proved there's still room for genuine quality. These games succeeded by listening to fans, not trends, and they respected their audience's intelligence and standards. Ubisoft needs to learn fast, or face becoming just another cautionary tale. And honestly, at this point, maybe that's exactly what they deserve. Assassin's Creed Shadows is more than just another AAA flop. It's a wake-up call, a glaring symptom of everything that's wrong with gaming today. And if Ubisoft and other big studios don't get their act together, gamers will just move on. After all, we deserve games made with passion, respect, and actual creativity, not cynical, marketing-driven disasters. Until that changes, expect many more games like Shadows, games promising authenticity and quality yet delivering neither. And Ubisoft? If you're listening, do better, because next time your fans might not give you another chance.